Hi everyone and welcome to my channel. Today we are going to be talking about my tips for a VBAC. A VBAC is a vaginal birth after a C-section. If you are new here, I had a VBAC in February of 2020, 17 months after a C-section. Make sure you check out my video where I talk about my birth story and my successful VBAC. Before we jump into it, please make sure you subscribe and like this video if you think the content is cool, and please follow me on Instagram at Dreaming of the Farm. All right, let's get started. My first tip of advice is positivity and privacy. So be selective with who you share your birth goals with as it pertains to a VBAC, because a VBAC can be a very controversial subject and everybody has their own opinion, and the opinion that matters most is your opinion, right? So as women, sometimes we want to talk about birth, but with my second pregnancy, I found myself to not really want to talk about it with everybody because I just kind of wanted to be able to identify my own thoughts and not have any noise in my head or have any unsolicited advice. So I became very private. I became very selective. I said, I am going to talk to people who are positive. I want cheerleaders. I don't want any negative Nancy's. So I really dodged the subject as much as I could if I could sense a negative comment coming. And I just can't say enough about that because I just felt like I had such a positive support system. And as you get more into that VBAC journey, having people who also want you to have a VBAC are really important. Number two would be to find a midwife. To talk about my C-section experience a little bit, I changed providers pretty quickly. I had an OB for the delivery of my first daughter. I had a C-section with my first daughter. I was a failed induction or a failure to progress. I did not dilate past 6 centimeters. After I had my C-section, I immediately started looking up VBAC supportive providers, and I found out at that time that not only were my doctors not considered VBAC supportive providers, but they also were considered C-section heavy doctors. So that was a mistake that I made, and I'm doing this video to hopefully help women to not do what I did and to hopefully really research that provider. And if you're going for a VBAC, from my research, most successful VBAC mamas had a midwife as their provider. I changed around 10 weeks while my doctors previously that I had with my first daughter never came out and said they wouldn't be supportive of me achieving a VBAC, but we never got that far, and my gut said that they would be a bait and switch. During my second pregnancy, I did get pregnant 8 months postpartum, and they were a little bit nervous about me being under the recommended interval of 18 months. And they immediately threw the idea in my head of a repeat C-section. They were really trying to sell the idea of a repeat section. My daughter's due date was February 2nd, 2020, and they were like, oh, a Super Bowl baby, that would be cool. Too bad we don't do C-sections on Sunday. Oh, you got any birthdays around then? Like, wouldn't it be nice to schedule your C-section on a family member's birthday? And in those moments, I kind of was falling for it. Like, oh my goodness, like these doctors have my best interest at heart. But not really. They have their best interest at heart, because as a doctor, it's probably easier to know when you're delivering a baby, and it's probably easier for their life, and not to mention the finances that go into it. Like, a C-section is much more expensive than a vaginal delivery. So I just felt that my providers weren't great, and I changed to a midwife for a couple different reasons around 10, 11 weeks, and it was the best decision I ever made. They greeted me with open arms. It felt like family. It felt like Christmas, and they were like, you are a great candidate for a VBAC. Your C-section seems like it was unnecessary, and we are really excited to support that with you. Number 3 would be to hire a doula. If you had a labor and it ended in a failed induction like me, I really would suggest a doula. I would feel very confident leading you in that direction because without my doula, I wouldn't have had a VBAC. We know that I carry posterior. I deliver sunny side up babies. I go into labor with back labor. It happened to me twice, and that's just my journey. And it was my doula who manipulated my body to get that baby in the position that it needed to be that was ideal for birth. I kind of can't believe that I'm recommending a doula because when I look back on my first pregnancy, I thought doulas were weird. I was like, that seems really crunchy. That seems like a waste of money when it's already so much that you're spending. Why add on another expense? Like, isn't that why you have insurance? We met very early on, and she asked me questions that I didn't even know I should be asking myself. Always talk to me before I had an appointment, and she would help me with questions. And as a VBAC, sometimes you'll have more questions than as not a VBAC. It's just because there's more risk involved, and each provider has their own standard of procedures, and you want to know the right things to ask. She was helpful in that regard, and she was super helpful postpartum. I had extreme sleep deprivation when I was in labor, and coming home postpartum was really a struggle. I was hallucinating. I was not making any sense. I was incoherent. I was almost at the point of going back to the hospital because my husband was that worried and he didn't know what to do. But it was my doula who gave us doctors to speak to. It was my doula who gave me a therapist to speak to. It was my doula who took care of us postpartum. And while my midwives were amazing and they were super supportive, I'm not their only patient. They have other women giving birth, and they can't give me all the attention. The doula was able to focus on me 110%. Number 4 is chiropractic care. So as I mentioned, I have posterior babies. My babies are sunny side up. So I started to see a chiropractor at 20 weeks pregnant, and I suggest a chiropractor that is certified in Webster technique. He worked with my body to help get my spine and my pelvis aligned that would help and encourage the baby to descend and to help me go into labor on my own. And you want to make sure that your providers are supportive of the chiropractor that you are seeing. I started to see the chiropractor at 20 weeks. I went every other week. When I got to 28 weeks pregnant, I started to go once a week. When I got to about 36 weeks pregnant, I went twice a week. And then 38 weeks, I went every other day. And then 40 weeks pregnant, I actually went every day. And yeah, I started to go more and more as I got closer and closer to my due date and as I went overdue by 9 days. Tip number 5 would be to listen to podcasts and listen to women who also had a VBAC. There is nothing more therapeutic than listening to a woman have a VBAC who had a C-section for the same reasons as you. It's extremely cleansing to have somebody understand the way you feel and to have somebody understand why a VBAC is so important to you. It also puts you in just like a very good mental mindset. I remember feeling like I can't give birth. Like maybe my body just does, maybe my body is just broken. Like maybe I'm just not meant to give birth vaginally. But listening to women who have a VBAC after having a C-section for the same reason just makes you feel like superwoman. Like, oh my gosh, if she can do it, I can do it too. And it was great for my self-esteem. It was great for my confidence. And it was just great for knowledge. I learned so much listening to those podcasts and listening to those birth stories. And not to mention, just when you hear so many women have that VBAC, if you have any fear that might be living inside of you, it really just puts them to rest because you just hear so many success stories and so much positivity that, you know, tip number 6 would be to drink red raspberry leaf tea. So I'm going to give you the Alyssa version of the science behind that. The purpose of the red raspberry leaf tea is to make your uterus stronger so that your contractions are more powerful. I drank the red raspberry leaf tea like nobody's business, and I had some amazing contractions once that baby was in that good position. I only pushed for 38 minutes. So I started drinking it in the 3rd trimester. For me, I did not like the recommendation of having 1 cup first trimester, 2 cups second trimester, 3 cups third trimester. I know a lot of people will recommend that, but for me, you don't want to get that uterus contracting at all or, you know, getting stronger until the baby is as close to full term. I waited until the 3rd trimester to start drinking the tea, and I started exactly at 28 weeks. I did 3 cups a day, and I just drank it hot. Sometimes I would add a little bit of lemonade to it or a little honey to make it sweeter, but the flavor is not that bad. It's an acquired taste, and after a while, you enjoy it. Tip number 7 would be to eat dates. I started eating dates at 36 weeks pregnant. I would have 7 dates a day. I'll give you the Alyssa Cliff Notes for the dates. The purpose of the dates is to ripen the cervix and to make it soft for dilation. And I dilated very quickly once I got to 6 centimeters. I was also told that my cervix was very soft very early on. The first time I was checked was 40 weeks and 5 days, and my cervix was, although I was closed, I had a very soft cervix, and my midwife said that she thinks it was from all the dates. Another reason that the dates and the tea were so important was that as a VBAC for me in my hospital, there was no induction drugs that I could use. For me personally, I was okay without the induction drugs. I had a lot of Pitocin with my first daughter, and you know, the Pitocin didn't have me deliver the baby vaginally. So that wasn't something I was really concerned about, but I did want to make sure that I had the dates and the tea so that I was doing the natural way of getting the body to do what the body needed to do. These are definitely not the easiest to eat. I'm not a super sweet person in that way. And the easiest way for me to eat them was to just put 7 in a Ziploc bag and put them in my purse for work and just eat them when I was busy. I would usually grab one and eat it on my way to pick up my students from recess. I'm a teacher, and that's a pretty chaotic time, like, you know, keeping the students in line. So the distraction of that really made it easier for me to just choke that date down because I wasn't really thinking about eating it. I did make a yummy dessert. I made a date ball recipe. You can get to that recipe on my Instagram. I'll leave it linked below. And that was super tasty. I would have like one of those a day. And I even made bacon wrapped dates one of the times. You know, I just got inventive with other ways to get them in. But even with those inventive ways, that was just extra. I still made sure I had those 7 days whole a day. I did try the smoothies. I did not like that because maybe it was my blender, but it never really broke down the date enough. They would just kind of float at the bottom of the smoothie. And I would try and eat the dates with a spoon, and that was just disgusting, and I just wound up throwing out those dates. So yeah, just choke them down. But I really think they had a lot to do with the softness of my cervix. I was nice and ripe, and I dilated really quickly, and I just really believe in the power of those dates and the tea. So tip number 6 and 7 kind of go hand in hand. You know, why not, right? Just do it. It's not going to hurt. And that way you at least know you're doing everything in your power to have your VBAC experience. Tip number 8 would be spinning babies. So spinning babies is amazing. If you haven't heard of them, you definitely want to check out their Instagram, check out their website. They have such amazing resources out there for women to have their VBACs and for women just to have that natural vaginal delivery that they may want. My doula was somebody that has a lot of training in spinning babies, so that was really helpful because she was able to break down all of those positions for me and explain the reasoning behind them. But I did spinning babies my whole labor, and that was how we got my baby to turn and not be sunny side up. Tip number 9, and I really think that this is a tip that is also helpful for induction, would be the mile circuit. So the mile circuit I started doing around 40 weeks pregnant when I wasn't showing any signs of labor. I wasn't dilated. I was high and tight, as they call it. And I started with the curb walking. And the idea of the curb walking is to rock the baby in your pelvis. So if you don't know what curb walking is, it's just walking on a sidewalk with one foot up on the curb and one foot down on the street. And you walk up and down and you waddle like a penguin, and you know, you're rocking that baby to hopefully get the head to push down on your cervix and to get your cervix to dilate. And it definitely worked for me because I had my bloody show very quickly after all the mile circuit that I did. So something I recommend with the mile circuit would be to go to a high school, somewhere where there's a long stretch of curb. It definitely can be frustrating to walk in a neighborhood where you have a lot of driveways because you're already exhausted and tired, and it's just uncomfortable going up and down and then feeling a flat surface. I like the rhythm of it. I like the repetition of it. And when I had the driveway, it just felt like I had to start over every time. Tip number 10 would be to do your hip circles on the ball. Be on the ball as much as you can. I did so much bouncing. I did so much circling. I did so much figure eighting. I did a lot of circle with a bounce in between. That was my personal favorite, courtesy of my doula. And you just want to keep your body as upright as possible, and you want to avoid reclining. I know that I reclined a lot during the pregnancy with my first daughter. It was August. I was hot. I was Netflixing. I was chilling. I was just always reclined. And I really tried to keep my body upright. Even though I still had a posterior baby, I just felt that I should try and keep myself up and lifted as much as possible. And that would be my tip for you, is to just not recline. Because even though both times my babies were posterior, I still at least went into labor on my own this time, and I do feel it was because I didn't allow myself to recline. Number 11 would be cervical checks. I avoided cervical checks with my second pregnancy as much as possible. I could have been checked earlier, but for me, being checked early on with the pregnancy of my first daughter, it kind of was discouraging if you were told you weren't dilated, and it definitely messed with my mental headspace. You know, it's hard not to compare, but you know, in both pregnancies, I've had girlfriends that were delivering right around the same time, and I would have friends say, "Oh yeah, I was 3 centimeters," or have somebody say, "Oh yeah, I'm 3 centimeters right now," and then to not be dilated at all. You know, it just kind of is hard not to compare. So I just rather have not known. I just liked not knowing, and I did get checked at 40 weeks and 5 days because my midwives were going to strip my membranes so that I would have a better chance at that VBAC. And when they checked me, I was completely closed. They couldn't check my, they couldn't strip my membranes. But the cool thing about that is that I still, even without having my membrane stripped, without having any cervical checks, I still got my bloody show right around 41 weeks, and I was able to deliver my baby 2 days later. When it comes down to it, VBAC is a lot about mental health and just getting yourself feeling strong and confident and believing in yourself, and that's really what it's all about. And I had my VBAC already 4.5 months ago, and I look back on my VBAC and I just say, why was I so scared? Why was I so anxious? Why was I so worried? We are women. This is what our bodies are made to do. And if you are doubting yourself, stop. If you are worrying, don't. Just let it be. You can do it. Believe in yourself and just really get yourself mentally healthy. And just something else I did, and this isn't really like scientific or anything, but I watched a lot of funny TV. I was really making sure to keep on the television that was going to have me cracking up and not have me crying, because I just wanted to be, super, laughing through it. And that's really what happened. We laughed a lot. As anxious as I was and as nervous as I wasn't an emotional catastrophe. I had balance and I had control, and I was accepting and understanding of what the fate would be. And if it ended up in a repeat C-section, I was okay with it. And that just something I want to leave you with is my favorite affirmation. I wrote this down everywhere in my house, and it was something that I had my husband and my doula say to me when I would get really discouraged or really down. And that is, the temptation to quit will be greatest just before you are about to succeed. The temptation to quit will be greatest just before you are about to succeed. So just remember that. Don't give up. Don't quit. And if you feel like you want to give up, just push yourself a little bit further. And that was something in my VBAC that just really helped me in those couple of moments where I just said, let's just do the C-section. I would hear those words and I would feel rejuvenated. I would feel refreshed. So just have a couple of great affirmations for you to fall back on. Women of strength, very brave and courageous. That stands for VBAC. That was a big one I saw in the VBAC community. And just, so many. And if you're going for it, I want to be there for you. I want to be your friend if you feel lonely like I did. And just know that you can do it. And if I can do it, anybody can do it. I hope this video was helpful for you. I am a little bit hot and sleepy, so if I look a little like, sorry, it's not, it's just hot in the room I'm in. And this is actually the 5th time I had to do this video because I'm new to YouTube and I was doing it in my kitchen and there was way too much light and I kept going out of focus. So I've been trying to get this video out for like a month, and I may look at this footage and not even put it out there because I just don't seem as authentic as when I first started, because I feel very rehearsed. You got this, VBAC mamas. You can do it. And I'm so excited for you to have that vaginal birth after a C-section, just to have that amazing experience. Thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and follow me on Instagram. See you later. It was really hot in the bedroom. I feel much better now. And yeah, I know I'm recording. I wanted to get the VBAC baby on screen.
We were having a nice peaceful evening until about 10 minutes ago.
I was upstairs in the bedroom and it's like 90 degrees outside and I feel like I'm going to pass out.
Drama queen, it's like 72 degrees outside.
Go upstairs with the ring light. It's really hot.
Hi. Oh, is this my part to be interviewed? So what was your favorite part about being a VBAC baby? Oh, I would say the whole coming out of a vagina was pretty okay, I guess. Actually, now that I think about it, it was terrible. Oh, Ellery, as the C-section baby.
Oh, she's playing with your phone.
Oh, my mobile.
No wonder she's being so chill. We don't play with phones.